Coming up today here on the Raiders Report, the Raiders trading Maxx Crosby isn't impossible if the Las Vegas Raiders win the final 2 games of this season. I want to be very clear on the statement that I'm making here. I'm not sitting up here reporting anything. Yes, this is the Raiders Report. Yes, we are the #1 most watched Raiders show in the entire world, but I also do shows based on my personal opinion. And when you get done watching this show, I guarantee you're going to sit up here and go, shit, if the Raiders beat the New York Giants and if the Raiders beat the Kansas City Chiefs, there is a chance that number 98 ends up getting traded, because I do want to say this yet again. Maxx and his team have made it very clear to me, Maxx has made it very clear to everybody out there in the world that he wants to be a Raider for life. I also know for a fact that Mark Davis and many people that are owners of that organization want Maxx Crosby to be a Raider for life. So when I do this show, I do it based off of what I see, what I hear, but I also do it a lot of times based on contracts. And if there's any real ones out there, if there's anybody that's watched this show for a long time, you'll know that I've said when the Raiders restructured Maxx Crosby's contract, they did it in a certain way that made him more available to be dealt in 2026 and in 2027. And in the NFL, a lot of times you got to follow the money. So here's going to be a question, and I know it's pretty blatantly obvious, but I want Pete Carroll to see this. I want Raiders ownership to see this question, because this is a legit question that might not be taking place right now. It will be taking place if the Raiders beat the Giants and if the Raiders beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I want to be very clear on that. What's more important, keeping Maxx Crosby or beating the Giants and beating the Chiefs? My answer is going to be coming up here after this YouTube ad break. No shit. It's obviously keeping Maxx Crosby. Winning meaningless games at this point of the season is not only going to ruin your chances of having the #1 overall draft pick, it's not only going to tick off your fan base, it's not only going to cost you millions upon millions of dollars, Mark, but there's also a chance that you could lose Maxx Crosby. So to Mark Davis, to Tom Brady, to Raiders ownership, I know that you don't really believe in the idea of tanking, but do you believe in the idea of having to potentially trade away 98 if you win meaningless games? I just want you to think about it, because I know you care about money, Mark, and winning against the Giants and winning against the Chiefs, I want to be clear, will cost you millions upon millions of dollars. Maybe even a B word in there. So here to me is why winning those 2 games could potentially mean a Maxx Crosby trade. If you're the silver and black and you get 2 wins, that means you're probably not going to have a top 5 pick. I put out a video bright and early on Tuesday illustrating the chances of the Raiders by beating Kansas City and the Giants. You're probably picking at number 7. And if you're picking at number 7, that does not help you get the best players possible to be able to build with the future. And I also get it. There's a chance that if you have the #1 overall pick, that you might not take a quarterback. But if you don't want to take a quarterback, you can trade back and you can fill a lot of roster holes. Because let's be clear, offense, defense, special teams, you're going to have a lot of roster holes that need to be able to be filled. And Maxx is the only dude on this team not in a contract year, or not in a rookie contract, worth multiple first-round picks. And I've spoken to multiple sources out there, but one source has made it very clear to me that literally anything is on the table this offseason. When I asked about literally anything, I asked him obviously about Maxx Crosby, and he replied with the same exact statement. Anything is on the table this offseason. Let's go to the next reason here why Maxx could be dealt if the Raiders win 2 meaningless games to end the season. You don't have a path at quarterback. And I'm not saying the Raiders are going to draft Fernando Mendoza. I'm not going to say the Raiders are drafting Dante Moore. But if you wanted to take one of those quarterbacks at #1, if you wanted to take a QB early on, you're going to have the opportunity to do it. If you're the Raiders and you're picking outside the top 5, you're not going to have the draft capital to be able to jump a team like the New York Jets. You're not going to have the draft capital to be able to do it. So if you have the #1 pick, you can go get your franchise quarterback. And Maxx has experienced some awful, and I mean horrific, grandma getting out of the tub type of quarterback play over the past few years since this organization decided to move on from Derek Carr. I will still say that in that moment, I think it was the right decision for both sides to split. The problem has been you've brought in just a mess of quarterbacks, and if I'm Maxx Crosby and I look at how these past few seasons have gone, I'm going to look at that roster and I'm going to go, well, if we don't have a quarterback, I've seen that song and dance year after year after year. And if Max is looking at this roster going, we don't have an answer at quarterback, that could be enough for him to go, you know what? I've really tried to do this. I'm not trying to ruin the prime of my career. I want to go out and I want to win a Super Bowl. And I don't really think Raider fans would be all that mad at him. Yes, we would be upset because nobody wants to lose Mad Max. But I also know that there are plenty of Raider fans out here that would go, yeah, I don't blame Maxx Crosby for not wanting to waste his career with the Raiders with a team that doesn't have a clear plan at the quarterback position. So I know that talking about these topics is never an easy thing. And I know when I do these types of shows, there's a lot of people that think I want the Raiders to trade Maxx Crosby. But the reason why I want you to join the Raiders Report, the reason why I want you to be a part of the program here is because if you enjoy free Raiders content, hit that subscribe button. But if you're also somebody that, like, when you go home for the holidays, when you're hanging around with your friends, I love talking sports. I love talking about the Raiders. And in my mind, no topic is out of the realm of discussion. I've seen so many things happen to this team that people are like, that's never going to happen. Seems to happen to the Raiders more than it happens to other teams. So if you're a Raiders fan that is confident enough and secure enough in your own mind to be able to talk about anything, I hope you hit that subscribe button because to me, conversation is fun. And conversation doesn't mean that I want to trade away Maxx Crosby. In fact, anybody that watches this show knows I don't want to trade away 98. Let's go to the next reason here why 2 wins could mean a Maxx Crosby trade. I see the expression a lot in my comments, and I see it around social media. The Raiders got to rebuild. The Raiders got to rebuild. No matter what, the Raiders have to rebuild. But the word here is full-on rebuild. And full-on rebuild is literally stripping it down and trying to rebuild it the way that the Raiders did a few years ago with John Gruden trading away Khalil Mack. And guess what? A full-on rebuild might be the only way to attract a good head coach, because if I'm sitting here as a head coach and I'm going, what the hell do I have to work with? I don't have a path to quarterback. I don't have a top 5 pick anymore. Yeah, I got salary cap space. Yes, I have draft capital. But with the amount of holes that this team has, you need some extra draft capital. You need some extra money. And trading away Maxx Crosby, you get some of that extra money and you get some of that extra draft capital. But after the past 2 seasons, the front office and ownership, you have to consider it, right? Like, this team has been awful this season. It's been the worst Raiders team I've ever seen in my lifetime. The year before that, 4-13, Josh McDaniels. When you have the amount of failures that the Raiders have, firing after firing after firing, you have to consider a full-on rebuild. And again, I don't want to trade Maxx Crosby, but you know it and I know it, the number one player that you can get the absolute most for that's not on a rookie contract, because they're not going to trade away Ashton. You're not going to trade away Brock Bowers. The player that you would decide to move on from is your 28-year-old player in Maxx Crosby, who, yes, is still, I would say, in the prime of his career, but you haven't been able to win with Maxx Crosby in the prime of his career. So if you want to attract that young head coach, what would you do? You bring in that head coach, and that head coach goes, you know what? We're going to move on from Max so I can have my plan for my future quarterback, so I can get those extra draft capital. And if you're an organization that's planning on doing, which, quote, I saw, I forget, it was like a week or two ago, a rebuild on a rebuild. A rebuild on a rebuild is a full-on rebuild. And if you do it, you have to at least consider moving on from 98. I don't think the front office wants to consider it. I don't think Mark Davis wants to consider it. I don't think Tom Brady wants to consider it. I don't want to consider it. But a smart organization would consider trading away Maxx Crosby if you are doing a full-on rebuild, especially when you don't have the answer at the quarterback position. So coming up here next, more reasons why Maxx Crosby could be dealt. And the next 2 reasons are the 2 biggest reasons. And I know I started the show off talking about money. You're going to see it. And when you see the money and when you see how it lines up, you're going to go, yeah, man, son of a gun. If we do win these next 2 games, you have to consider moving on from number 98. Before I get into this next part of the show, though, huge shout-out to our sponsor here, Panda Subs. And today's Maxx Crosby special is presented by them. Make sure that you use code RaidersPanda. It's a new code, so I don't want you to forget about it. Code RaidersPanda for 25% off at pandasubs.com. That link's going to be available to y'all down in the comments, down in the description. of today's show. If you want to be able to prep for the holidays and you need some awesome seasonings, Hefe Special, roasted veggies, urban butter medley, the Texas Heat Taco Tuesday, cinnamon, honey, butter. It absolutely slaps. Also, some pre-workout. If you don't want to pay for the pre-workout, if you spend $199, you're not only going to get free shipping, you're also going to get free pre-workout. Now, if you spend over $99, you get free shipping. If you spend $150, you get free shipping and a Panda Subs hat. If you are looking for the pre-workout that I have been using, I've been hammering the Pando. And the reason why I've been using Pando is because sometimes it's really difficult for me when it gets cold out to wake up in the morning and go get a workout, and I need a little bit of a kickstart. The Electric Colada, the Berry Lime Reactor, Sour Robo Belts, the Peach Gear Rings. I personally have the Peach Gear Ring, so I don't know how the other three taste. But if it wakes up my ass, I promise you this, it's going to help get you up out of bed and get into the gym. Also, if you're going to get to the gym, get the most out of your workout. Their Fuel Premium Protein, it's next level. And for somebody that's got a sweet tooth like me, you got 11 mouth-watering flavors, 30 grams of protein, and you can get all sorts of different flavors. I mean, they got mint chip. They got more on the fruity side. If you want something just basic like chocolate and vanilla, they have that. The s'mores is the one that I've been hammering right now, so that's why you see the picture. And then, because New Year, New Me, I eat a lot of sweets during the holidays. And I've been crushing some sweets over the past 2 weeks. I will be taking my Burn Thermogenic because you can convert fat into fuel through increased thermogenesis while also enhancing performance. So if you're trying to be the best version of yourself in the year 2026, because damn it, I'm hoping the Raiders are the best version of themselves in the year 2026, go get started with our sponsor, Panda Subs. Code RaidersPanda, 25% off at pandasubs.com. Let's go to the next reason here. Why 2 wins could mean a Maxx Crosby trade. The Crosby contract. And like the video, type me down below if you've heard me say before, when the Raiders restructured Maxx Crosby's contract, it was for them to be able to potentially trade him in 2026 or in the year of 2027. Because when they restructured his contract, they front-loaded it. And you don't really see in today's day and age teams front-load a contract unless it's built to be able to get out of when he has the $0 million guaranteed. And he's got $0 million guaranteed in 2027 to 2029, the final 3 years of his deal. I also think that that was structured that way because if a team does go out and get Crosby, Crosby and his team are going to be able to say, well, hey, I want a brand new contract because I don't have any $0 million guaranteed. So you front-load it a little bit. Now, if the Raiders do trade him, they save $30.8 million in 2026. So add that $30.8 million to your salary cap, and you can go out and spend a little bit more money on adding extra players. Sure, you eat that $5.1 million. That's nothing in the grand scheme of things. But the other important contract detail is the 2027 salary. $29.8 million becomes fully guaranteed on the third day of the new league year. For those of you that don't know, the new league year begins March 11th at 2026 at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Now, if the Raiders were to trade Maxx Crosby after the new league year, that new team would take on his contract. But if you're Maxx Crosby, you want to be able to pick where exactly you want to go. And I also think because of that $0 million guaranteed in 2027 to 2029, he's going to get another new deal if he ends up getting dealt. And let's face the facts here. $29.8 million for Maxx Crosby in 2027 might be the steal of all steals when you see that Micah Parsons is getting 48. Micah's a hell of a player, no doubt about it. But that number is going to be going up more because look at Will Anderson. Will Anderson's going to be talking to his agent, and I don't know if he's going to get Micah money, but he's going to get Myles Garrett to Micah Parsons money, probably somewhere in the middle of that, $45 million. That's going to raise the price tag on that. So because Max is going to want another new contract in the year 2027, if he's dealt, if you're the Raiders and if you're Maxx Crosby, you probably want to be traded before that money becomes fully guaranteed on that third day of the new league year. So because there's that little bit of a, hey, let's pick up the pace, and before NFL free agency, there's that legal tampering period. And the 48 hours before March 11th is going to be hectic. And if Maxx Crosby is traded, it's going to happen in that 48 hours before that time. I don't want it to happen, but the money leads you to where certain areas are going. And if the Raiders don't have a top 5 pick, if they have no path at quarterback and they're going to decide to go full-on rebuild, you have to consider moving on from Maxx Crosby. The money makes sense. And then the final reason. Raise your hand if you've heard that the 2027 draft class is better than the 2026 class. I hear it all the time. I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's not true. But before I get into what I think about each class here, I'll ask you, which class is better? Do you think it's this year's class, type 2026, or if you think it's better next year, type 2027? The reason why this is an important question is because if you're a part of this Raiders organization and you're going, well, I actually like the quarterbacks a lot better in 2027. Maybe you're more willing then to not tank, not lose, to go get Fernando Mendoza in 2026. My answer, though, is going to be coming up here in just a moment. The reason why I'm going to say 2027 is better, it's because there has been one quarterback that I've heard, and his name is C.J. Carr. And I have heard that the Raiders are already eyeing C.J. Carr. So if I'm already hearing that type of stuff, and that was weeks, months ago, you can go back and check out my old videos, I do wonder if, that's the Raiders' plan. Because if your plan is to get C.J. Carr, you can't necessarily be like, well, we're just going to stink again. We're going to tank. We're going to rebuild. The way that you do it if you're the Raiders is you trade Maxx Crosby and you get a stockpile of draft picks in 2027. That way, you have all those stockpile picks to be able to go up and go get your guy in the class. But right now, if we had to compare, 2026 to 2027, I don't know if Dante Moore's coming out. That's why there's a question mark next to him. And if he does come out, it obviously helps 2026. But if he decides to go back to college and he decides to go into 2027, that only makes that draft class a little bit better. Now, I don't know where Dylan Raiola is going to go. I don't know where DJ Lagway are going to go. Raiola, obviously, with this past year, is with Nebraska. I actually think it would be hilarious if he went to Texas Tech. And in all honesty, it kind of makes sense for him to go to Tech. Lagway just played at Florida. But when you look at those players there, you can sit up here and you can say what you want. I think it's a little bit more of a toss-up than what people want to realize. I'm not as big of a fan as Arch Manning. I'm not as big of a fan as Julian Sand as some other people. To me, though, the biggest deciding factor in this could be C.J. Carr. And I put out a video, and I'll put it for you guys down in the comment section if you made it this far in the video. And it's this. Quarterback plan leaked. It's probably got somewhere near, I think the last time I checked was 36,000 views on it. So you can go check it out. You can watch it if you want. But this was based on something that I was told by a source. And it's a damn good source. And you can believe me, you cannot believe me. I don't give a flying flip. I've been able to prove myself and a lot of people out there. We got a lot of good information that comes in. Not saying it's going to be true, but if I get information, I always relay it to you. Just like when I started the show off saying, I haven't gotten any information on the Maxx Crosby trade. I'm just making content based off of things that I do think could potentially happen. Because where there's smoke and there's fire. And if you haven't seen the Crosby contract, and if you haven't been able to really sit back and look at what the Raiders quarterback plan is, what the Raiders top 5 picks could be, what the Raiders draft plan could be, if you don't have a clear path, why would Maxx Crosby decide to stick around again? He could decide to stick around because it means more dollars and cents after his football career. But if he wants to actually have a chance to win a Lombardi and actually play in some playoff games, if you win against the Giants and the Chiefs, I don't know how Maxx Crosby looks at this team and he goes, I think we're a team that's going to be winning in my time where I'm in my prime. And that's a hard reality. It's a hard pill to swallow. I also don't know if I would blame Max. I don't know if a lot of people would blame Max. I will say you signed a contract for a reason. I would love for you to be able to finish out your career with the Raiders. But I also, it's been really, really tough to watch the silver and black. And a full-on rebuild, trading away Maxx Crosby, might make the most sense for both sides. Before I get out of here today, I know that today is Friday, and I hope that everybody watching the show did have a happy, Merry Christmas. I am going to be live, though, on Saturday. Texans up against the Chargers. The Texans have not locked in a playoff spot yet. There's I believe only the 7th seed is available in the AFC. And the reason why I really wanted to be able to do this show today, and the reason why I really wanted to be able to do this live stream is for multiple reasons. One, I want to be able to be here and celebrate with Chugs if the Texans end up winning. But then also, that 5 seed is a big one to me because the number 4 seed in the AFC playoffs is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I would say when you look at all the teams in the playoffs, the number 1 team that I would want to play in round 1 of the playoffs, the Pittsburgh Steelers. If the Texans win, and if they win their next 2 games, and if the Chargers lose their next 2 games, I think you're going to be able to see the Texans jump up there, the Chargers fall down a little bit, and to me, At this point in the season, I'm going to be rooting against the Chargers. I'm going to be rooting against the Denver Broncos, and I'm going to be rooting against the AFC West. If you're on board with that, make sure you're subscribed. We're going to be going live an hour before kickoff. Texans Chargers here on the Raiders Report.